So we must do two things, two great things together to encompass that enormous new view that lies before us, but to encompass it within the framework of science, to see it within the whole categorical framework of science, and to see that these two are not separate, but that they are wedded. The bigness of the idea, the newness of the idea, the greatness of it is one with the structure of science, the structure of being itself.
All right, so we are on that level of divine science, and we've come to the point of science on that level. And we were saying that it is there that the divine self-understanding of being comes into focus. And I just refer you back to the survey in the Four Levels book to verify that and to brush up and polish up your sense and awareness and tonality of that point of intersection. You know that it's at that particular point where the sense of the Holy Ghost comes in. And we have been seeing that really not in an old religious way, but in a cybernetic way, in a scientific way, therefore, that it is really showing us that there is a great point of descent coming in, that there will be a terrific influx now into the further levels of absolute Christian Science and Christian Science, and the bringing of everything that we have seen about spirit on the levels of science itself and divine science, bringing that with a great impact to those two great feedback circuits of absolute and Christian Science. So remember that we're always looking at that cybernetic setting and system, and those two great feedback circuits now are going to show us two great rhythmic circuits of feedback. So we come to absolute Christian Science. Do we have a relationship on the level of absolute Christian Science? What would you say?
Yes.
Yes. And what is that relationship on this level? Who can tell us that?
Ideas to ideas.
Principle interacting with its many ideas, ideas relating with ideas, yes. So it's really showing us the relationship between principle and each of principle's individual ideas. And again, when we say principle, we mean mind, spirit, soul, principle, life, truth, and love, that each one of the seven has a definite relationship with ideas. And so spirit, too, has a definite relationship to each individual idea, and therefore to every idea. Yes, I don't know whether we mentioned this before, but we should remind ourselves, or at least be aware, that spirit, therefore, would have a relationship, the same relationship that we're going to see as we go through this level. Spirit will have this relationship to every idea of mind, of spirit, of soul, every idea of principle, life, truth, and love, okay? So, for instance, wherever you have an idea, no matter what idea, what synonymous term that idea intrinsically belongs to, spirit, so to say, will give birth to that idea. Spirit will always be holding the office of giving birth, you see, of developing, of what else do we have here? Unfolding, yes, evolving, you see. All of those ideas are not only involved in Spirit's relationship with Spirit's ideas, but with all ideas. Is that clear? Does that make sense? Okay. So, at the point of the word, what do we see? Let me look here. See what we have. the point of the word, we see that like, the accent is on like. Like produces like. Like produces like. Do you see that under the word in absolute Christian Science? And let's just trace that across, because that's something rather lovely to see and something fine that came out when I was working at this point in the subject, that I kept seeing this idea of like producing like in different ways. And actually we have it in 4 different places. And as I looked more deeply into that whole idea of like producing like, I could see what was happening, that we can see that from the standpoint of the Word, or the standpoint of the Christ, of Christianity, and of science. So in the Word, you see, the accentuation is on like producing like. Like produces like. In the Christ, it's like producing like. In Christianity, where you have the outcome, it's like producing like, the outcome. And science, one feels, would gather them all up as one, as we know science is wont to do, and it would see them all together as Spirit's scientific law of order, that like produces like. So this comes forth really out of what we had on the level of divine science as the likeness. Remember, we had that likeness coming in, the likeness of Spirit. Now there's a relationship that each idea becomes itself, the likeness of Spirit, and each idea is that likeness. So going back, Spirit in the Word orders every idea now. Are you able to follow me? See if I can follow myself. Now, going back to the Word, below like producing like, we see that as the Word, Spirit orders every idea, it gives order to each idea. It gives birth. It's the birth giver. There really isn't a single idea that comes forth that isn't born and ordered of Spirit. And you know that absolute Christian Science is all to do with this. It's showing us being, becoming, the coming into being, into conscious awareness of ideas. That's why that law of life, truth, and love says there's an impulsion coming out of divine science that is going to impel forth an individual idea. To individualize, you see, it's individualizing the whole idea, the infinite idea of God being, individualizing it to you. And that seems to be a birth from the standpoint of Spirit. That's how Spirit would see that that's a birth going on, that there's a giving birth, a bringing forth of ideas, the unfolding of an idea, the developing of an idea. So we have all of those ideas at the point of the Word in absolute Christian Science. And then the Christ, as we saw, which is actively producing that idea as the likeness of Spirit, is doing something else too. What is it doing? Diversifying, classifying, individualizing ideas. Where do we know this terminology from? The textbook. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And what else? What would you say if I said, well, what do you know about the 4 orders on the level of Christian Science? Where would we see Spirit diversifying, classifying, and individualizing.
The four orders, well, that would be, we're doing the Christ, aren't we?
Yes, it's the Christ order. And it's really an active sense of ordering that is going on, isn't it? To diversify ideas, to classify ideas, to individualize them. Something is actively working, ordering every idea. And that's why at the further level we can see that the Christ is able to sort out from the whole realm of ideas that idea which is exactly right under the circumstances, that which is the specific idea. It wouldn't be possible to find the specific idea without that quality of spirit, that ordering activity of spirit. It's so necessary. It's implicate within that law of truth, life, and love, you see, on the level of absolute Christian Science, right at this point of intersection of the Christ, that we have to have that individualizing if we want a specific idea. And we can't do that with the human mind. It isn't the human mind that does it. It's the mind, the Christ mind, working through the laws of the Christ science, specifically through that law of the Christ that is able to find, to select, you see. It's the selection ability, the selection principle that's able to find that idea. And here we see that it's spirit that is governing and overseeing that activity. Spirit, too, we see, calculates each idea. It's spirit that's calculating the individual idea so that each idea is really a calculus of spirit, a calculation of spirit, a calculus of spirit. And this would lead us then to Christianity, to the outcome of that when like is producing something, it is producing like. That like is a spiritual calculation. So we have the calculating in the Christ, and the result of that is a spiritual calculation or calculations, wherein we would see that every idea is the offspring of spirit. As offspring's a little bit different terminology, whereas spiritual calculation, this is more of a scientific terminology. It's steering us and gearing us in the scientific terminology and towards science more and more and more. But we speak about the birth of spirit, you see. Well, what is the outcome of the birth-giving activity of the Word and the Christ? It is that birth brings forth the offspring of spirit. It's the outcome. And now we see a realm referring to Christianity, a realm of, a field of, outcome of diversification, classification, and individualization. Do you see that that's different than what we had in the Christ? In the Christ, it was the activity of, the working of, diversifying, classifying, and individualizing. When you have the final result of that, then you see that it's a whole realm of diversification, classification, and individualization. And we used to mix this all up, and we were quite happy with it at the time. It was all mixed up, and we loved it, until the understanding of spirit began to move and to evolve more order within us. And then we would ask a question, like, well, what is that? Where does that belong? We would begin to sense out differentiation between all of that which at first looked the same and looked alike It all looked alike. This looked like that, and that looked like that, and that, you know. We had a likeness where everything looked alike to us because we didn't have a consciousness of that differentiation of science. But as science came in and began to structure our consciousness, consciousness is the grid through which we look at everything. And so that grid was constantly being refined and refined by the categories to such a degree then that when you look at that which you've been looking at for a long time, you suddenly see something different than what you've seen. And that's what's happening now as we begin to get a glimmer and a sense and a slight touch of this feel of the calculus bringing more order in. But that's what happens whenever there's the coming in of a higher order, a higher understanding of our subject, that we will begin to become aware of differentiation, where we see that what we thought was everything alike, we suddenly see, well, this is a little bit different. Well, how is that different? And we begin to weigh it, don't we, against our categories. In what way is it different? And it's our tonality, it's our spiritual tonality then that begins to say, well, can't you see that this has a little bit of a touch of the human in it, or this has a little bit more absolute sense, or this is divine, or this is above the divine. It's the infinite one, what the infinite one would say about itself. And so all that we ever need is to know more about the system, to be more groomed and trained in that system. And then we begin to see that there's a difference between all these ideas. And that's the diversifying, classifying, individualizing power of spirit, of the science of spirit within us, to be doing that constantly. So that is an outcome. And we also see that the outcome are spiritual realities. What did we have in science itself? We had that spirit itself is reality. Remember? Reality. Now we see that each idea is a spiritual reality. And the textbook speaks of the realities of spirit. These realities of spirit are spiritual things. The things of spirit. Beautiful. Have you ever looked up what she says about the things of spirit in the textbook? Everything that belongs really to the somethingness of spirit, the infinite reflection of spirit. These are the things of spirit. They're ideas. You see that spirit would look at mind and say, mind, that which you call ideas, those are, to me, those are spiritual realities. They are the things of spirit. So the real things that we deal with and only ever have to deal with are ideas. That particular rendering of the things of spirit comes out quite a bit in the platform within the textbook, which is, of course, the highest teaching in the textbook, and I believe that she speaks there, if I'm not mistaken, on more than one occasion, perhaps 2 or 3 occasions, about the things of spirit. What else do we have? We have the fact that every idea, you see, is a spiritual reflection, a specific spiritual reflection. So it's not the reflection of spirit as a whole, but an idea is a reflection, a specific reflection. It's specific. It's a focal point. You see, we get the focal point of spirit coming out. That's what an idea is, that all categories come together in a certain specific way. All the categories of being are diversified, classified, and individualized, and what comes out is the focal point of spirit, a specific reflection of spirit. So finally we come to the standpoint of science, and I think you could add to what we have there this law of order that like produces like. You can add to that the fact that spirit orders all. And because meaning is relational, you have to see tonality-wise that sense of science, that whereas we saw that in the word there was an ordering, but ordering the unfoldment of, ordering the development of an idea, now we see the final form of that, so to speak. At the point of being or science, the sense of beingness, that's what science gives in the fourfold calculus, a touch of the beingness. Now all is ordered. You see, it's that everything is ordered. I don't know, how does that set with you? Yeah. Okay? Yeah, orders all. It's like a final pronouncement that everything is ordered. Now we can also add there that fact that each idea is a calculus of spirit. So that is absolute Christian science, and now we see that this infinite, this divine, this absolute truth of spirit, you hear that those are the first three levels, that this infinite truth of spirit, science itself, this divine truth of spirit, divine science, this absolute truth of spirit, absolute Christian science, is flooding us. It's coming to us. It's breaking in on us right now, right at this moment. There never is a moment when that is not coming to the human condition, the human heart, the human consciousness. That's the coming of the Christ science. It is the saving science. You know that John Dorley referred to absolute Christian science as the Christ science. I don't know whether you remember that or not, but it's a great point that he made, one of many, many great points, a great structural point, because it refers to the whole level of absolute Christian science, that he could see that this is the Christ science. So those laws on the level of absolute Christian science are the laws of the Christ science, and they work interdependently with the laws of the level of Christian science. There's no way that those laws of interdependence can be broken up or separated one from another. And what I really want to say there is that the laws of absolute Christian science can never be separated from the laws of Christian science. And the laws of Christian science never stand on their own. They are always showing us the impact of the laws of absolute Christian science upon the human consciousness and situation. And so we cannot help but to experience the saving science, the Christ science, because of the interdependency of those laws. It's not the case that we have to set something in motion, to make it work, to make Christian science work and come and do something and be what we expect it to be and want it to be, because that whole dynamic is innate in being. And there's no possible way that we can escape that we are at every moment under the impact of those laws. This is why really you see coupled together the two levels of absolute and Christian science in the design of being, in the model of being, in the chart, because they work so intimately together and illustrate that dynamic of impact. So that is breaking in, not because of what we do humanly, but in spite of what we do or don't do, in spite of anything.